Today we're going to look at cosine law. Yesterday we looked at sine law, but before we get started, I want everybody to make sure they take out their calculator. Every day when you go to do trigonometry, when you walk into class or you're working on your assignment, make sure you hit mode on your calculator and make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. If it's not in degree mode, then all of your calculations are going to be wrong. The other thing you need to realize is that if you reset your calculator or a teacher resets it, it is going to change your calculator out of degree mode. It's going to change it to radians. So you have to consciously make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Something you want to try is when we do go through some of the examples here, don't only just write down the work, actually try typing it in your calculator and see that you get the same solutions. That way you know your calculator's set up correctly, and if you're not getting the same solutions, we need to talk when you get to class. So if we look at this first example, in this first example they give us a triangle and they tell us the length of two sides and they tell us the measure of one angle. And they ask us to use the sine law to determine the length of BC, this one side that we don't know. The problem is we do not know an angle and the side across from it. And there's no way to figure out any of the other two angles that we have, so we could use sine law. So in this case, sine law is impossible to use here because we don't know an angle and the side across from it. So if we can't use sine law, then we have to use cosine law. And the cosine law is in your workbook. There are actually three different versions of the cosine law. You're only going to be given one of these versions on your formula sheet, this first version. So you have some options. You need to realize that this starts with a squared because it means you're finding side A. This starts with b squared because you're finding side B, and c squared because you're finding side C. If you are going to only use this version of the formula that is in your on your formula sheet, then you may have to relabel your triangle. You may have to make sure that the side you're looking for you label side A, and the angle across from it you label angle A, and go from there. And we'll talk about how to do that when we do some examples here. So we're going to go back to this same question that they gave us previously, where they want us to find side BC, which is side A here. And since we're looking for side A, we're going to write down our formula. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. Now, this formula looks a lot more complicated than sine law. It really isn't. The biggest mistake that people make when they use this formula is they put the wrong values in the wrong positions. So you have to be really, really careful about that. We are looking for side A. So this is going to be a squared. Side B is across from angle B. It's 6. So this is 6 squared. Side C is across from angle C. So this is 3 squared. Minus 2 times 6 times 3 times the cosine. Remember, capital letters are angles. And angle A in this particular question is 36 degrees. Now, since all of our values are on the right side of the equation, we can actually take our calculator and we can actually calculate this whole expression all at once. So we can type 6 squared plus 3 squared minus 2 times 6 times 3 times the cosine of 36 and hit enter. Now, you're going to get this big, huge, long decimal answer. You do not have to write down all those decimal places when you're showing your work on your paper. You can write down 2 decimal places. That'll be enough for me to know if I'm checking your work that you did this portion of the question correctly. However, you do need to use all of these decimals on your calculator to create your final calculation. Because to get A, we have to actually take the square root of 15.88. That's how we get rid of this squared. So on your calculator, what you're going to do is you're going to go second function, get the square root, and go second function, and to get the answer, this whole decimal place, you're going to press this little minus key in brackets. And it's going to say second function answer now. So when we solve this, if they never tell you how to round, we always round to 2 decimal places. In this particular question, it says round to the nearest tenth of a centimeter. Well, tenth is 1 decimal place. So we get 3.98, which when you round it to the nearest tenth is actually 4 centimeters. So there's an example of how to find a side using cosine law. So we're going to look at one more example using cosine law, one where we have to actually draw a picture. So it says here, Bellevue is 30 kilometers north of Ayr, and Churchville is 18 kilometers northwest of Ayr. Calculate the distance between Bellevue and Churchville. Okay, so we're going to start here, and we're going to go north, and then we are going to go northwest. So here's the triangle that we're looking at. This is Bellevue. Sorry, this is Bellevue, this is Ayr, and this is Churchville. And it wants us to find the distance between Bellevue and Churchville. That's what it wants us to find. They say this is 30 kilometers, and they say this distance here is 18 kilometers. Now when they say northwest, northwest is at a 45-degree angle, and that's just something we're going to need to know and realize when we're doing our work. So this angle here is at 45 degrees. So now I'm looking for side A. This side we're looking for is across from angle A, it's side A. So we're going to write out our formula. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. Side B is 18 kilometers. Side C is 30 kilometers. And angle A is 45 degrees. So just like before, we're going to type all of this into our calculator. So we're going to type 18 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 18 times 30 times the cosine of 45, and we're going to get 460.32. And if we take the square root of that answer, we get 21.46 kilometers. Always have to use units when we're doing a real world problem. Now, if we look at this triangle that is in this question up here, you're going to notice it's not labeled A, B, C. They tell you two of the sides. They tell you QP is 1.7 meters. They tell you that QR is 3.1 centimeters. And they tell you that angle PQR is 110 degrees. And they want you to find this angle over here, or sorry, this side over here that we don't know. Now remember, this is not labeled ABC. So the side we're looking for is going to be A, because our formula is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. So if this is side A, we're going to relabel this angle down here angle A. It doesn't matter which of these angles you label B or C. The most important is that you get side A and angle A correct. So I'm going to label this right-hand corner B and this top corner C. And now you've got sides A, B, and C and angle A that you can use with this formula. So if you just relabel your triangle, then you don't have to worry about manipulating or memorizing these other formulas that are here. You can always use the one formula that you have on your formula sheet.